Brad's not in the picture.
Oh, Bradley.
My hand is.
All right.
School close together, no, Ron?
Yeah.
That's like y'all know each other.
Now you're out.
Kind of like, you know, like a curve.
There we go. That's
right.
what I was trying to do. Bradley, curve yourself
Curve
in.
yourself a little
So
closer
in,
in there.
Brad.
You know you're worn now. And you
Okay, how about if I do like that? Don't pull away.
I know I am.
All right.
Act
Well,
like you know each other.
everybody, welcome to Happily Married Mondays with the Jolleys here live on Facebook. We're doing a special edition of Happily Married Monday
Because
tonight.
we're at the beach.
We're on vacation at the beach, and initially I was planning not to do one tonight. I told Dee and my staff, I said, I'm not doing one, I'm going to be asleep. I'm usually asleep for 2 days of hibernation when I first come to the beach. And today, though, I did get awakened during the middle of the day and check some emails that my assistant has shared with me. One of the emails was from a lady who saw us on television on Friday
In Richmond.
in Richmond, Virginia, on CBS affiliate.
CBS 6.
Yes, Virginia This Morning. She sent a very poignant email about her marriage and how challenged her marriage was and how challenged she was in the marriage. And she said, help. I desperately need help. And it spoke so to me that I said, okay, we're going to do one tonight, and we're going to talk about a few things that obviously are concerns of people who are struggling. Here's what she wrote. She wrote, what a great day it was to see you on Virginia Morning Show last Friday. I couldn't help but thank God that you two are on the show because I really, really need your help. My husband and I are experiencing the roughest patch ever in our marriage. And if we don't get some help, we might be among this, I'm pretty sure we'll be among the statistics of those who are divorced. We want to fight in our own way, but that ugly enemy seemingly has one up on us and keeps coming back. Please help. And so I told my wife that we were going to go ahead and do one tonight, and we were going to do something different. We're going to invite our dear friends to be involved, and they are our friends for, well, this one here, I've known all my life, and he has been my buddy since we were little boys. And then this is his wife, Terry.
Well, you didn't give his name.
I'm going to give it to him in a minute. And his name is Bradley Thomas. Attorney Bradley Thomas. And we've been friends. We played in the band together, 98.6, when we were teenagers. Then, my other teenage friend from my church is this guy over here, Ronnie Bordley. Wave at him, Ronnie. And Ronnie and I have been, we're like brothers, and we are tied at the hip. And that is his bride, Lynn, who also I have known since I was a teenager. So we have been friends all our lives, basically, and we've been vacationing together for over 30 years. We've been vacationing together over 30 years together. Our kids are like cousins, and so I said, you know what? Maybe I can use this moment to be a blessing to others, because Bradley and Terry have been married, is it 34 or 35 years?
It will be 34 years next month.
All right,
Is
that's
that right?
That's right. And that's 34. We're 33, and Ronnie and Lynn are 28. And so,
Did you introduce Terry?
all right, so this is Bradley Thomas,
Hi.
Terry Thomas. Let me tell you who they are. Bradley Thomas is a wonderful, very successful attorney in Washington, D.C. He's also a songwriter, a community activist. He's an ANC commissioner in Washington, and he also is a singer extraordinaire and musician extraordinaire. His wife, Terry, is an award-winning arts professional and teacher with the DC Public Schools, and she's from this beautiful state we're in now, North Carolina. And about an hour away, Terry?
About an hour.
Yeah, about an hour away. She's an award-winning, as I said, arts teacher and arts professional with the DC Public Schools. Olympia is a IT professional with the federal government, but
You can't tell details.
I can't tell details. She had to kill us, so we don't never ask her, what do you do over there? And she don't never tell us because she don't want to have to kill us. But she also, before we go any further, is a new author with a great book. Would you please show them your book and tell them real quick about your book? We'll do it again at the end. Tell them the name of the book and what it's about, please.
The name of the book is Moving at the Speed of Me, and the book primarily is about an inner city kid from Washington, D.C. that liked to plan parties and turned that like into a professional business. The name of the business is Orbs World Treatment, which is an event planning business in the D.C. metropolitan area. And I've had this career about as long as I've been married, sort of side by side. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later. If you need more information, you can go to info@orbsworldtreatment.com.
Excellent. And where can they get the book?
They can get the book on Amazon. It's on Amazon, so you can go to Amazon and look up my name, Olympia Boardley, or Moving at the Speed of Me.
You probably need to spell Olympia.
Olympia is spelled O-L-E-N-T-H-I-A, Boardley, B-O-A-R-D-L-E-Y. And the name of the book again is Moving at the Speed of Me.
I love the book, and I think I gave it either a quote or endorsement or foreword or something. Okay, so it's a great book. Her husband, Ronnie Boardley, as I said, we've been friends since we were teenagers. Sang all of the three of us sang in the youth choir at Asbury United Methodist Church. That's where they met, and he and I
and you were there the day you.
That's right. You y'all met. That's correct. I actually was there the day all of these folks met. Okay? I'm the reason they are there, but I met.
That's true.
That is true. I'm a great matchmaker. But Ronnie is a retired federal employee, a health management expert, and official with the government. And now he is doing his thing and doing all sorts of new things. And, it'll be a blessing. He's a caretaker for two 90-year-old parents who he's been running up and down the road with, and thank God they have been able to stay here, and we're grateful for that. So Ronnie's here, Lynn's here, and Terry's mom is 90, and his mom, Brad's mom, is 100, and so we're grateful. So look, here's what we want to talk about in today's session, and I'm looking for Miss Provisions HQ22. You were going to send me back your specific question so that I could respond to it. So if you do that, we will. If I get it and I see it, we will respond. But we're going to talk a little bit. We were going to talk about the day anyway. What was on the list today?
Today was the follow-up
On finances.
Finances.
Perfect.
A little more in-depth.
Perfect. This is perfect for finances. So on Friday night of last Friday, Dee and I were at a gala at St. Paul's Baptist Church for their Marriage to the Max conference, and had a great response. And then Saturday we did just about a half-day seminar for them, and it was.
So the gala was Friday night, and then we had the seminar. The couple seminar was actually Saturday,
right,
from 9 to 1, which actually ended up being 9 to 2, 9 to 3.
Right. It was a tremendous response from the folks there. Now, one of the points we talked about, we got lots of questions, and some of them we might have time to share because they are profound. But one of the things we got over and over again, how do you handle money? Now, we talk about in the marriage, make love, make money, make it last. We deal with the big three boulders that break up marriage: sex, money, and communication.
Communication being the common thread through all of it. Because if you're not talking, you're not communicating, you're not being honest, it doesn't work. Because you certainly can't manage the money.
Right. So, we talk about in the book, hey, Janelle said, they cannot hear us? Janelle, so they cannot, we got a producer over here. I don't know what to do without them not being able to hear us. Huh?
Not well.
Not well. Okay.
So maybe we need to talk
We
louder.
need to speak louder, maybe.
Okay.
All right. So
Got it.
got it. Okay, we'll talk louder.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you, Janelle.
Yes.
And thank you, producer Kristen. Okay, we'll speak up louder. And if any of you else have a problem, email us or anything that is pressing that you need to send us an email at info@williejolly.com.
And we'll talk louder. Let's go.
All right, so marriage and money breaks up a lot of marriages. Money. So we need to have a system. We had a conversation with a friend of ours recently who had been married 12 years, and she said, I'm done. I'm going to divorce my husband because we got a problem with the money. I don't know what the money is. I don't know
But
what
he pays all the bills.
he pays all the bills, but I know nothing. And I said, what's your money system? She said, we don't have one. Ah, that's the problem. So, what we learned in our research and writing the book, and hopefully everybody has a copy of the book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last. If you don't, go to jollymarriage.com. Get 2 copies, one for you and one for your significant other. So you can read it together and at the end of each chapter, discuss it. But chapter number 10 is the one on money, and it's called Money Matters. You got to count the cost. And so, count the cost, money matters. And we talk about the 3 systems and the people we interview, these are part of the group of people we've interviewed around the country, with the 3 systems for handling their money. Now, the first system is one we found with people who are starting off young, right out of college, right out of grad school, or out of high school. They get married. They have no assets. They have no real 401ks or homes. And they typically are building their dream together. And they created a one-pot system where all the money goes into one pot. And
They watch the pot.
And they watch the pot, and one person is responsible for handling the money and writing the checks. If I'm correct, Brandon and Terry are that. So y'all tell them about that and how y'all handle money.
How'd you come up with the one pot?
How'd y'all come up with that?
We're just geniuses. That's but you know, I was thinking as you were talking, reading the question from the viewer, whatever. I don't know how many viewers recall when Ronald Reagan was president. It's been a few years. But he had a slogan that he used with regard to his dealings with what was then the Soviet Union and the management of nuclear arms, the Strategic Arms Treaty, SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, I guess it was called. Anyway, he had a phrase, and it was trust but verify. And what he meant by that was there were agreements that the 2 countries had made, and we trust you that you're going to follow the agreement, but we also will check from time to time to make sure that you are. So we kind of have that kind of a situation. We have a lot of different accounts and different pots of money, but I pretty much manage all of them. But Terry has access to them. I don't hold back on the codes or anything like that. Anytime she wants, and sometimes I say, well, why don't you check from time to time? But she can check anytime. I'm not hiding anything, even though I'm actually the one who's moving the money around and paying the bills and all those kinds of things. You know, she trusts me to do what I'm supposed to be doing, but anytime she wants, she can check.
She can verify.
She can verify if she wants to.
Now, I've noticed something, though. When we go out to dinner, whether we're here at the beach or wherever, Terry keeps the cash.
Yep.
All right. I always noticed that. Terry got the cash. He'll look at her, and she go in the pocketbook, and she put out a little paper bag and a little paper envelope, and she starts dealing the cash. All right.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
And so.
Well, you know, you got to throw him a bone every now and then.
By the way, way, Jesse, if you haven't noticed so, he's probably the funniest lawyer on the planet. And one of the things, let me take a kind of left turn. I'm signaling on left turn right here. Is in the book we talk about them, not about their money system. We interviewed them for their money system, but we had a number of people who had the one pot. We interviewed them and we talk about them specifically about the fact that they never argue. I have never seen them argue. And part of the reason is because of humor. Terry, why don't you say something about that? Because he's always cracking jokes.
Do I have to sit here and listen to this?
Well,
My union says I get a break every now and then. I'm going to.
Bradley is definitely the comedian of the family. But it is very difficult for me to be upset at him for a long period of time because he is hilarious. And if I'm upset, then he'll make a funny face or a joke, and it's all over. So if it happens, it doesn't last for long. It just does not. And I really appreciate his levity.
Yes.
And because it has gotten us over hard times.
Yeah.
And in terms of the money, he manages the money. It does all go into one pot, but we discuss financial priorities.
Yeah.
So I know where the money is going. I do check those accounts from time to time, but I have no reason to not believe that he's doing a good job in terms of financial responsibility for our family. And it's worked for us for 34 years, and so for us, it works.
Okay,
but there's lots of discussion, lots of communication.
All right, so
Communication.
and again, we talk about communication, but they got a system and it works. Do you have, and y'all are both on all accounts, am I correct? I mean,
put you on the spot.
Not all accounts.
Yeah.
Most of the accounts. I mean, we probably have, what?
oh, you got business accounts too,
Yeah,
right?
we got
Yeah.
15
Right.
accounts.
Because he has a number of business activities.
Yeah.
Now, but she has access to anything. Anything happened to you, she would have access.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
great. The next example is the board lease. They're in the book. We actually, in the financial money matters section, we talk about them specifically. We found in our research that, again, Bradley and Terry were typical of people like our friends, the Glasses, Kenny and Rudine Glass in Detroit, who got married right out of college, and they have one pot. She handled the money.
She's the one who
Managed all the money. She got things moving. They bought rental properties, but she handles everything. And he's now a senior VP, high up the ladder at General Motors. We met when I spoke for them, and we become close friends. We always spend time with them when we're in Detroit. And they said they have built it, and even today it still works. Now, you look at the Borleys. They got married a little later in life, and we found people who were later married in their late 20s, early 30s, who came to the marriage with some assets. They might have had a small condo, or they might have had a car, or they might have had assets, whatever they may be. But they have what we call the two-pot system. And Ronnie said it not only was from him and Lynn, but also his parents did that because they had two incomes. And Lynn, I believe your parents did the same. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what that is,
And I think that's probably the bigger factor than the age that you start out.
okay, that's probably true with what your parents did. That's very possible. Now, let's talk about the two-pot. Is you take
How does that work?
How does that work for you? How did y'all set it up? What does it look like? What would you tell a young couple how that works?
Okay. Well, I guess the key is first discussing it before you get married, because that's the main thing. And make sure you understand.
That's big.
And make sure you agree with how you do it, because I don't think there's any perfect way, but you just got to agree with that's the way you are going to approach things. And our parents were similar. where my mother, who worked, was responsible for the utilities and for most of the things related to the household things, but she still was responsible for them. And my father had the big ticket items, like the mortgage, the cars, and everything. And over time, as each of them had salaries that increased, my mother would get her own car, but they would still discuss that ahead of time, but it was still in her name, and it was her car. And she made that very clear to all of us, that it was her car. So a lot of it was negotiation, and as Brad said, a lot of it's negotiation, because there are going to be some times when you're going to have to say, oh, well, this bill is kind of big. Can we do some switching, because now I'm doing more than we had before, or I've gotten an increase, so I can take over something else. So I think even though it's a two-pot system, it's one where we're discussing who's responsible for what. We make changes in that system. And since we talked to Willie, I've retired, so we have ended up coming up with one pot for a major purchase that we did, just because of the way that our system is set up. So it can change over time.
That's good point. Good point.
Like the one who raised the question Saturday. All right, there's only one person working now. How do we do a three-pot? So you don't do a three-pot. You got to change to do a one-pot.
Right. That was one of the questions. If we only got one person presently working, and we had been doing a three-pot, how do we do it now that one person is working? Which is then you change to a one-pot. But at least you talk about it. You notice each one of them said something similar. We talk about it. We talk about everything. When there's a need, we discuss it.
And no hidden agenda.
But I also want to allow my lovely wife to add her 2 cents also, because even though we have 2 pots, she has her own business.
That's right. That's right.
And that adds another aspect to that whole process, because one of the things that ended up happening was, as our kids got older, then she had more time to do her business.
Yeah.
But even before then, I was taking on some more responsibilities with the kids to give her more time with business. And that was a negotiation too, where it was, on this day, no matter what, whether you're teaching, because she used to teach a class, or whether she was doing a meet, these are the days that no matter what, I get the kids, and she will be able to do her business. The kids didn't like that, because they knew that they had me instead of her. But it also, and that's part of, and I think that's also part of like the financing too, because there's things we had to separate for the kids.
Right.
For example, for college, we got to one point when one was in college and the other one wasn't. It was, oh, okay, well, I got this. When both of them was in college, nope, you got to talk to your mother to figure out how you're going to do your part. Right. So there's other things that will end up happening that we have to negotiate, and it may change, and you may have to move things around. But I was supposed to give her a chance, right? Sorry.
No, I just, what Ronnie said is correct. We, because on both sides of our family, on my parents' side and in his parents' side, they both too also had a 2-pot family, and it just seemed natural. He saw it on his end, I saw it on my end, so it wasn't like unusual, because we both seen it before. So it just sort of developed and grew. It's interesting that we talk about one being retired, and I'm still working, he's retired, but like he said, as we've been going along, those 2 pots are melding into 1 pot as we close out with jobs and such. And then the business pot, that's just a whole different pot altogether. It's really not a pot, because as Brad knows and you guys know, money comes, you use the money as fast as the money comes in, the money goes right back out.
Right.
So it's not like a pot per se.
More like a sieve.
like that. More like that. And I've been fortunate enough for women in business, as there are a lot of women out there, that when you're growing your business, it's paramount that you have a spouse that is understanding, especially when children are involved, or even not, that will let you be your own person and grow your business and still grow your marriage at the same time. That is a balancing act that can be kind of difficult, but if you sit down at the table and really discuss it, it can still work. And there are a lot of women who I know that I've talked to that won't move their business or grow their business because they say, I'm married. And it's like, well, why can't you do both? You can. You just need to find an avenue that's going to work between the two of you. But back to finance, the main factor with financing always is communication. And without it, it's going to fail.
And one thing I need to add, even though we have two pots, that does not mean that she does not have access to our major accounts. There are some accounts that she had even before we were married, that she still has, that are still her accounts, and they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're her accounts. I have some that are my accounts, but there are also some that we have that have both our names on it, and those are the ones we use for our major purchases. And the other thing I need to add is related to that, what she just said. Several times, and she doesn't say it too often, but people will come up to her all the time and say, how did you get your husband to let you do this? Or how did you get your husband to, and her favorite response is, he can't let me do anything. I will do it myself. And or he has no control over that. So she tries to get people to understand that you're in control of yourself. You can talk about it and everything, but it's not a matter of a husband letting someone else do something.
Well, let me comment on that, because in some marriages it is that kind of hierarchy where wives are put in a subjugated position and are submissive, and sometimes that's because people have misunderstood scripture, and they say, wives, be submissive to your husbands, but they leave it at that. There's a second part of that comment that Jesus said. He said, that was taught by the scripture, and Paul talked about wives, be submissive to your husbands, and then husbands, be submissive to your wives as Christ is to the church. He was willing to die for the church. And so we must be understanding that all of us have to submit to be loving and caring and kind.
So it's like a cycle.
It's a cycle. So we both have a responsibility. One more thing I want to say that came up in all of their conversations. They've spent a lot of money on their kids' education. Okay? A lot of money.
A lot. A whole lot.
And as we have, and we say, if you ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, it says that many millionaires are in your backyard, in your neighborhood, in your neighbors to you, who don't have the biggest cars, the biggest houses. They've invested their money in things for legacy, their children's education. And so, let's see, Bradley and Terry have 2 children. One is just finished Yale graduate school, on her way to law school. Chris, who's over there, who our producer
tonight.
Georgetown.
Legacy.
Georgetown Law School, where he went to law school. Their son Brian has a degree from UVA, as well as a master's or MBA from Howard University.
Ain't you?
And you know. Anyway, and he is, so they spent money on that. Ronnie and Lynn, their daughter Janelle, is a school teacher who has her undergrad from Frostburg State, and almost finished her master's.
From Loyola. In Maryland.
And Maryland. Their son Jason went to High Point University, where my friend Nito Cobain is the president, and it's not a cheap school. But it's great school. No. Not a state school, but it's a great school.
And thank God he had a scholarship.
Amen. And then he's in his master's program at, where's he at?
He's at Mount St. Mary's.
Getting his master's. So spent a lot of money, and we, of course, we have William, who went to Howard Law. William and Mary, Howard Law School, and as an attorney. And so we are grateful that our children have understood the importance of our sacrifice for education. Okay.
I have to add, though,
Yes.
part of that, though, is our parents, I know in Brad's case and in my case, sacrificed a whole lot for us to go to very good schools
Yes.
at
Yes.
a time when that wasn't expected.
Absolutely.
To the point where I had an argument with my father when I had planned on going to Montgomery College, although I was accepted to BU.
Boston University.
Yeah, and my father basically told me I was going to go.
Mm.
And I thought I was doing something to help him, and he's like, I don't need your help. I want you to go to BU.
All right.
And then later on, I was like, well, how did this turn around? But that's what happened. And they made sacrifices. Even when we had scholarships or we had loans, they still made sacrifices because they had to travel us back and forth and do other things. So.
All right, so we got, now let's talk about the 3-pot. The 3-pot is D and I. So we got the 1-pot, we got the 2-pot, we're the 3-pot. The 3-pot, we were older when we got married. Dee had a home, she had a car.
We each had a whole bunch of stuff.
Had a bunch of stuff. I had a bank account, she had a bank account. There's one more dynamic that's in it. Everybody who knows me knows I am cheap. Everybody knows that, and I'm frugal, and so we'll use the word frugal. I make $1 holla. Anyway,
Well, you probably why we're friends, because I think we all
we all
we're in
have something in
competition
common,
for that.
But here's what, when we got married, I had a checking account, Dee had a checking account. And I said, why don't we do it like this? Why don't we create a 3rd account, which is our household.
It's the household account.
And we have a budget, a monthly budget, and we would make contributions to meet the budget. And if there were necessary additions to the budget, she would let me know and I'd add more money or so forth. So that has worked really well for us because I don't have to worry about if she has, and I'm on her bank account, she's on mine. That's one of the things that was important for us. And secondarily, she go buy shoes or whatever she want. I don't even think about it. And I go buy a tech toy, as I was telling Ronnie's daughter today, Janelle. I got every kind of Apple Watch. I got every kind of Apple's product. I had every kind of toy. I just went and bought a new bicycle for the beach.
So he can't be too cheap if he does that.
Yeah, but that's my little thing. But she doesn't. But you know,
it is not a big deal
Right.
because it didn't come out of the household money.
Right.
That's all.
And she handles the household accounts as well as the business account, which is a whole nother entity because they're separate entities. She handles that, but everything she writes, she runs by me. We talk about it. And again, it comes back to what we've all said. Talking. Communication. Make love, make money, make it last. The big 3 of sex, money, and communication.
Communication
And you
is
gotta
a common
talk.
thread. So if you're not verbalizing, the partner doesn't know what you're thinking, doesn't know the situations, and you can end up thinking something is going on where there might not be. I had quickly a friend when we were in Dallas came to me to say, I think my husband's running around. I said, why do you think your husband's running around? Well, he has changed the passwords on the master account where they deal with the financial advisor.
What?
And then plus there's married 25 years, have a 23-year-old. And she's never really been involved in the finances. So you know that there's some other things. Again, that's communication. So the short advice that I gave her was call the financial advisor and say you need to have a printout of all of the accounts because you don't know where the last statement is. When she got it and called me the next week, she discovered he had another 401k with $300,000 in the account that she did not know about. So I had to talk her down off the ledge. So communication is everything. So there's some things that are missing for a long time in their relationship for that to have happened.
That's right.
One other thing, though,
Yes.
that's part of this whole discussion is debt. And that really comes up a lot with new couples because these days, because of college loans or whatever, there's debt that you are bringing to the table. and they need to understand the impact of that. And a lot of times when you're in love, you don't discuss those things.
That's right.
So that's very important. But also in some of these situations you've talked about where people have been married and they have one pot or two pots, there's debt related to credit cards or spending that people keep quiet. They don't want the other to know, and it gets out of hand, and that's another issue that comes up.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because we got a lot of people who talk, and I want y'all's opinion on what happens when people have bad credit scores and they're getting into a relationship. What do you think two people need to know?
Well,
They need to know everything. They need to know the credit score. Today, yes.
Mm-hmm.
one thing I've talked to young people about, especially young ladies, is that though you may be enamored and the person is the guy of your dreams, and your credit and everything you've been doing is above board and everything looks good. But if you merge that with a person that's not as healthy financial status as yours, what is his becomes yours. It doesn't matter that you're doing right and your scores are great and your credit is wonderful. If you bring in a situation, not saying the person's not a nice person, just saying that the person's financial status is not that of a good one, you'll be in that pot that you don't want to be in. So you really need to work those things out before making that move to get that white dress and walk down the aisle.
So that's communication and being honest about your debt.
Correct.
Okay, let's talk a little bit, because the time will go quickly, because one of the questions was that we got from this lady about rough patches.
Mm.
Now, they've been married 34, 33, 28 years. We all have rough patches. And maybe and Terry mentioned...
I don't know what rough patch means.
There's some tough times, okay? How do you get through the tough times? Let's use ours first.
Oh, okay.
Let's go with ours first. Rough patches.
Which rough patch you want to talk about?
We don't have no time for that.
I think
They start this morning and work backwards.
I would say the roughest patch we had was with blending our family. That was the roughest patch or roughest issue overall that we had, was blending family.
And probably the least that we could actually control.
Right. So when I came to the marriage, I had a daughter who, when we got married, she was 10. And she came to live with us. We're blending families. Now, up until the time that we got married, she and Dee were like best friends. You know, she would go spend summers with Dee, because Dee was in Hampton, Virginia, after last year of our when we were dating, and I'd go back and forth. But she spent the summer, prior summer and the summer we got married with you, and they were like.
Well, she was involved in church activities. My father was a pastor and all of that, so she was involved. She was a little sunbeam and just involved with my cousins and the like. So it was a very positive relationship until
we said I do. And it changed. Because she had been conditioned by people outside of our sphere and the other side of her family that if I married her, Dee, then I would not love her and would put her away. And so it was tough. I mean, it was really tough. And what we learned through that tough patch was, and we won't go into all of the details now, but we're going to do a whole show on blended family. One of the things that came up from the seminar on Saturday was blended families are a big issue in a lot of relationships. We're going to do a whole show, and it looked like we're going to have to do a book. But here's what we did learn. It was two things. One, for me, I had to pray for wisdom, as I told the group on Saturday. I've got this daughter who I love, and I've got this wife who I love, and I'm being pulled apart by these two sides. And I had to learn to be wise. And what I prayed for every day was, God, give me wisdom. Give me wisdom. And I prayed for wisdom, and then the next thing we did, we talked. We talked about it, and we got family counseling. We went to family counseling. Dee, your take on that?
We had family counseling. We didn't really have a choice.
Right.
Because it was a mess.
Yeah, it was tough.
And I had to learn
You said something the other day that was profound.
Oh, I say so many things that are profound.
It's not about.
Okay, we were saying, or I was saying, when I realized that it wasn't about me as much as it would not have mattered who Willie had married. It wasn't her mother.
Right.
And that is powerful.
It wasn't about you personally.
No.
It's not personal. It's
No.
position.
Right.
Right. So.
It was the fact that I was the wife.
Right.
And oftentimes, the children are conditioned by the parents that you can't love that new person because that means that you're rejecting all that I've done for you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really mean that. But it took us years to get to that point where when our daughter would say, you know what, when she told me, you know, they said that I couldn't love you because if I loved you, I couldn't love them, my mom and my grandmother. And you think, what a painful thing for a child to have to carry around for years. And so I'm thankful to my mom for reminding me of what I needed to do, even though it was uncomfortable, in terms of being supportive and not saying a lot of things that I wanted to say.
And let me
because it would have caused the relationship to deteriorate.
And let me deal with one point that we talked about in the seminar on Saturday, and then I'm gonna let Ronnie and Lynn and Brad and Terry give some tough point they got through and how they got through it. One of the things I talked about was wisdom. When my daughter was living with us, we at the age of 15, we told her that she was too young to date, and she wanted to date, and we were too strict. We made her do homework with no TV during the week. Well, she was talking to her mama, and mama said, "What? That's too. You know what you mean? They too strict." So one day they did this episode or this kind of secret agent thing, and Dee would take her to school every morning on her way to work. I'd pick her up at school at 3 o'clock. One day I come to pick her up. They say, she's not here. I mean, where is she? What you mean she's not here? Her mother picked her up. I go in the office, called Dee, and Dee said, I didn't pick her up. I said, did mother have a southern accent? Oh yeah, she's from North Carolina. She had absconded with her and took her back to North Carolina and called us that evening and said, y'all were too strict. I took her and she's gonna stay with me. Well,
praise the Lord.
Dee was happy because there was peace. There was no drama. About 3 months later, phone rings. It is my daughter's mother saying, she is really giving us me a hard time. And you need to come get her. And my first thought was to hang up the phone in her face and say, you made this bed lagging. But I've been praying for wisdom all these years. I said, let me call you back. I went to Dee. I said, here's the situation. Dee said, oh no. Oh no, 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 no. And I continued to pray, and then I slept on it. And the next morning I told Dee, we got to go get her because it's the right thing to do. And Dee was not happy, so you tell her what you did.
I called my mama.
Okay. And what did your mother say?
To get support.
Right.
I didn't get it.
Go ahead and tell her what she said.
She said, when I want to be married to a man who didn't want to do everything possible to take care of his children. And what are you going to say with that? And she said, you get yourself in that car and you go with him and you do everything you can to make sure that it turns out well. You support him as he works to raise that child.
And so we went together. It was difficult. We got, as my only condition to take her back was full custody so that I could now control how and what she did without any interference. And she was able to finish high school with us, going to college in Elizabeth City. And so it was wisdom. That's what we say about praising wisdom. Okay.
It was not easy.
It wasn't easy. Brad, Terry, any particular thing y'all want to share with helping maybe people who are struggling?
I'll let her do this. I don't retain the struggles, to be honest with you. Go through a lot of struggles over the years, but once I get through them, I just
let them go.
I let them go. So.
Okay.
Well, a big struggle for us was when we decided that I would leave my job, my government job,
Good
Good
government.
government.
And stay home and raise our children. That was a huge decision, but
And that impacted that pot.
greatly in many ways. That wiped the pot out. But it was a commitment that we made. And so that created a rough time for us because we had to revamp everything. We had to come up with a budget that worked for us. And then another commitment we made after that was that we would send our children to private school. And our children went to private school from 3 years old all the way up to 12th grade, both of them. But those two decisions, I don't regret them. It was the best thing for us. That worked for us. It was a commitment that we made, and we found a way to make it work. But again, it goes back to commitment, and it goes back to trust. I had certain needs that I wanted taken care of, even though I was not getting a paycheck anymore. So it just took a lot, and it was a struggle for us, but it was the best thing we could have ever done for our children and for our family.
Okay, and y'all, it worked because you talked about everything.
Yeah.
And you communicated with it, with what your needs were, and you didn't do what we call stamp collecting, which we talked about, we talked about stamp collecting, and we think this is important for communication. Stamp collecting, if you're under 40, you probably don't know what a S&H green stamp is. What?
We have to hurry.
All right, yeah. S&H green stamp, if you're under 40, when we were growing up.
And top value stamps. Remember?
Top value, I forgot about those, Brad. All right, so you go get an S&H green stamp when you got in the grocery store, you paid cash, they gave you some stamps, you put them in a book, you store them, and they fill up the book, and then you go to the redemption center and you get a black and white television, or you get a toaster or a blender or whatever. Well, in relationships, people stamp collect where they don't talk. And they store up. Something hurts them. We got a bad feeling. And then one day, the toilet paper is off the roll, and it bothers you, and you blow up over that.
Or you didn't put the seat down.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
And explode because you were stamp collecting and not talking about it when you were impacted or how you felt. They talk about it. These two talk about it. Okay, Brad and Ronnie and Lynn.
We're running out of time.
Hey, not that there's anything wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Ronnie and Lynn.
We're running out of time.
Go ahead.
We're running out of time.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess the roughest patch, and I'm speaking for, I guess, the both of us, but has been, and this is something that couples have to deal with, is how to get through health crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of health crises with kids, with your parents, and that can be a difficult time, and especially when you're trying to go through that with your partner. And that's when you kind of have to depend on each other, because things may change. Your partner may not be able to do the things that they normally do, and you have to kind of roll with it. It's kind of close to home right now, but I think that's a good example of rough patches that almost everyone goes through, especially with their kids, because you may not approach a kid's illness or sickness the same way, and you have to have a united front on that, because for the child is going through a difficult time. And you may not agree with what's going on, but you have to present a united front for the child. So I would say that's been and continues to be our roughest patches at this point. Everything else when those kind of things happen, everything else just goes to the wayside, because that's the issue you're dealing with, and you really have to deal with some emotional things that may not be up front in the before, but then you have to deal with it then. So.
Wow.
But again, we're running out of time.
It ain't quite over yet, Ronnie. I know you saying that.
I'm trying to move really forward when I say that.
And I'm trying to move it away from
Maybe Lynn has something to add.
The only thing to add to that is that I ditto what Ronnie has said, and just reflecting on things that have happened over the last 10 years. Yes, it has been rough, and there's a lot of praying that has to go on,
Yes.
and a lot of crying that has to go on, and a lot of communication that still has to happen when it's hard to talk. And we've all been in situations where we know we need to talk, we don't, and we hold it in, and we still need to talk. So I'm not, by no stretch of imagination, going to sit here and say, oh, I talk all the time and it's easy. That is a false statement. But you have to find it inside and find your strength. And as difficult as things have been, will be, and is, you still have to live, survive, and love in between all of that, even when you don't feel like it.
Yes,
So
good.
you still have to do it anyway.
And the other thing is, when those things are going on, you realize some of those other things that, like you said, putting the seat up or down or whatever, you realize that doesn't mean that much. And I have a mantra too that I say, and I've had to use it a lot of times with the kids. They may not agree with it, but some things, I used to say I hold my tongue. Now after the song that all the people used to sing, all the kids used to sing, I just say let it go, because it's just not worth it. I just have to say, those kind of things, when the big things happen, you just gotta let it go.
Well, you know what I find? I find that the worst crisis is the one that just happened. Right? Really, because that day, or the next day, or maybe for a week, or maybe for a month, that's all you can think about. This is terrible. But a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, or sometimes 1 month down the road, you think, oh well, I got something else that's more of a crisis now than that thing was. Because time has a way of just smoothing the rough places out.
One of the things we've struggled with is, Ronnie touched on it, with health challenges.
Yeah.
Lynn lost her mother last year. So that was a very difficult time. Her mother was having one health issue after another. Terry lost her father just 2 years ago or so. And so those are tough times. And we talk about how we lost my mother on April 11th, 2003. On April the 6th, my brother died in the morning and her father died in the evening, same day. And it was tough. Now, who do we eulogize? Who do we focus on? Well, we got together, so we would get through this together. And we eulogized my mama, then we dealt with my brother, and I eulogized him, and then we went and eulogized her father and dealt with each one of those situations together. And so we would encourage you to talk and communicate. Now, I want to take a moment again to say those, because we might have people who are not with us on Monday nights, because we sent this out to everybody in our list and said we wanted y'all to be a part of this, because we knew this was going to be a profound relationship building. And everybody, you know the old song, everybody loves somebody sometime, but everybody got to have a relationship. Get the book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last. Get 2 copies, one for you and one for your significant other. Read it together. If you want to be on the same page in your marriage, you need to be reading out the same book at the same time and taking notes and discussing it. We also encourage you to get the new live CD, double CD, which is Dynamite. It's a seminar we did at Grace Church. And it talks about in great detail sex, in great detail, money, and communication. It's funny, it's poignant, and it's life-changing. And this is one I tell people didn't come from us, but came through us. Again, I want to ask...
One shout out.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned my parents, but There's another one for 68 years.
His parents 68 years still
Okay.
married, and
Francis
and Geraldine both. And I'd ask you to pray for their health. Would you all pray for their health?
Yes.
They're having, both of them have major health challenges, but God is able to do exceedingly abundantly. So pray for Francis, his dad, and Geraldine, his mom,
Amen.
Wardley, and we're praying them through and praying Ronnie's strength as he is a caretaker for two 90-year-olds. And so running back
And
and forth.
strength for Olympia, who has to take care of me.
Yeah, right, there you go. Okay,
Amen.
real quick, here's a question I want to ask each one of you. Other than love, what's critical for the success of a marriage? Brad and Terry. Other than love.
Well, let whomever wants to answer.
No, I'm saying
pop up and answer.
Communication.
Communication from
Yep.
Ronnie. Okay, Ronnie. Lynn.
Communication.
Communication.
Uh-huh.
Without it, you can't. Love is not going to sustain without communication.
Okay.
Honesty.
Honesty. Okay.
For the wife of the Lord.
Right now.
We never know what he's going to say, just so y'all know.
Humility.
All right, humility, that's good. Yeah,
That's a good one.
And that's
Because,
how
I mean,
wanna
because-
say
I
it.
think- no,
Tell us why.
Because we all think that, I mean, at least from the time you're the baby and you begin to get consciousness, you're the most important, you're the center of your world.
Right.
But you have to get to a point where you are willing to step back, at least from time to time, and say, okay, it's not all about me. It's now about this other person, or in a larger sense, all other people within your circle. So it's mostly, spouse, but it also extends to your children, your larger family, your broader community. So and in each case, you have to be willing to say, oh, okay, this time for this minute, I'm going to step away from being the center of my world.
That's good. Okay, somebody texted me and said I didn't tell where they could get the book. JollyMarriage.com. You can get the book, and you can get the live audio at jollymarriage.com/live. Live. Get both. Lynn, please tell them one more time where they can get your book and where they can reach you if they have a wedding or event. To get,
Moving at the Speed of Me, you can get it on Amazon, or you can go to my website, orbsworldtreatment.com. We do events, weddings, and special occasion functions. There we go. It's been a long day.
At the beach.
I'm waiting, folks. Y'all know we at the beach.
You can,
Our brain's not quite engaged as much. ORBS, right?
Orbs, ORBS, royaltreatment.com is, you can drop me a note there or send an email as well.
Bradley,
Thank you so much.
real quick, you're one of the top attorneys in Washington, D.C. Where can people reach you, or if they have some legal needs, where should they contact you?
www.bradleythomaslaw.com. BRADLEYTHOMASLAW.com.
Terry, do you want to say anything or shout out about any of your programs you're doing with it? You got so many things you typically do with art students every year and art programs. Anything special you want to shout out?
I just want people to support the arts.
Okay, great.
And I'm retired.
That's a great way to end. So thank y'all. Our time. This was a special edition. Send us an email, please, at info@williejolly.com. Let us know what you thought about tonight's episode. We ask you to do a couple things. One, subscribe to this channel on your Facebook, and share this link with Lottie, Dottie, and everybody. To send it out to millions of people. We want millions of people. Our goal in writing this book was to save 1 million marriages and enhance 1 million more. And so we want you to share this with people, many of who are struggling with their marriage. A lady came up yesterday at the church last week, and I want to say shout out to everybody at St. Paul's Baptist Church. They were lined up and getting books signed. Lady said, I'm buying this book for my son, two books, one for my son and my daughter-in-law. They're having a tough time in their marriage, and I want them to have what you have shared this weekend with the seminar as well as today's message. So if you want to save marriages, get the 2 books and get the live audio, and then follow us also on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, IG, Instagram, and we will be having our seminar that you can access online. We're going to do one in the next few weeks, so you want to make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. So info@williejolly.com, or just go to williejolly.com/gift. williejolly.com/gift to be on our newsletter. You'll get information about when we're doing our live seminar that you will be able to access online as well. Okay, our time is up. Thank you, Bradley and Terry Thomas. Thank you, Ronnie and Lynn Bordley. And I want to thank all of you and our producer, Kristen Thomas, and Janelle Borley, who's been sending information to Kristen about what we need to be doing and speaking up. So thank you, Janelle, Jason, Becky, Ryan. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Brian, William, and for everybody, Jolly out!
Jolly out.
God bless y'all. Bye.